Today we're going to talk about lifelong learning with technology, and we're going to cover quite a few areas just briefly. One is the Iste Standard for educators and what those are, learning through digital tools and digital spaces, organizing your digital workspace, or it could be called your knowledge space, and then the importance of setting professional goals. To start with the Iste Standards, so Iste stands for the International Society for Technology and Education, and they've come up with standards just kind of like you have Common Core standards or content standards in other areas or state standards. They came up with standards for technology and education, but it's unique because they have standards for students, but also for educators and educational leaders. So their first standards came out in 1998. And then they had to update them, of course, because technology changes so much from 2007 to 2009. And then right before 2017, they actually did a very extensive review of the standards. And they brought in teachers and administrators and researchers and community leaders and business leaders into different focus groups to identify what are the most important things that students need to succeed, and what do teachers need in order to help students have those skills. So that's how they developed the Iste Standards. They're very high quality indicators of what are important for students and educators and education leaders. And then they actually have a couple of new ones. One is for coaches. So those are kind of like teacher leaders. And then this is computational thinking competencies for educators. That's trying to help teachers develop the skills to help students with engineering and other types of programming mindsets to help them be successful in today's world. So we're going to focus on the Educator Standard in this course. So here's the basic structure of the Educator Standards. We have learner, leader, citizen, collaborator, designer, facilitator, and analyst. So we're going to cover all of them at least briefly in this course, but let's start with learner. So you might say, well, if we're talking about teachers, why do they talk about a learner at the very top of the Educator Standards? They're the ones doing the teaching, right? Well, you might have noticed if you watched the video that went along with the textbook this week, that one of the challenges in today's world is that our understanding of the world, the technologies we use, the knowledge we know changes so rapidly that we can't just be stuck in the same thing all the time. We have to be continually learning and updating skills. So this is just an example. This is Microsoft Word across time. So this is just one program. So say that you were in college in 1984, some of our teachers who've been around, 30 years or so or more might remember this. In 1984, you started learning a Microsoft Word processing program that looked kind of like this. And it changed. This is in 1989 and 1995. It starts looking very different across time. And then this is the more recent. So in order to be able to use a program like this that itself is constantly changing, you have to know how to learn through different digital resources, because it would be very annoying if we had to have a faculty professional development every time they came out with a new version of Microsoft Word. You have to be able to figure that out and learn it on your own. Now, this is just one program, but if you think of the types of different programs and technologies we have, they're changing so rapidly that you have to figure out a way to develop your own learning environment so you can stay up to date on the tools that your students need. So these are the 3 learner standards from Iste. One is set professional goals to explore and apply pedagogical approaches made possible by technology, and then reflect on their effectiveness. So you're going to actually explore new approaches made possible by technology and decide, for yourself, did this work or not, or what needs to be changed. 1B is to pursue professional interests by creating and actively participating in local and global learning networks. Okay, so we're going to talk about this a little bit. Creating and actively participating are keywords for these learning networks. And then 1C is staying current with research that supports improved student learning outcomes, including findings from the learning sciences. Now, you'll notice that the only one of these standards that mentions technology specifically is 1A. The Iste Standards are about learning, what students today need for learning. Part of that has to do with technology because, for example, we have this local and global learning networks that are enabled by new technologies. But really, we're starting with what learning do they need and building from that. So the first part of this video, where I'm going to focus on this 1B and 1C, and then we'll come back to 1A at the end. So one thing that's really challenging for teachers is they're very pressured on time. Really, any professionals in any type of education setting, everyone's very busy teaching. So it's hard to find time for the learning that needs to happen. And so we have this approach called micro bursts of learning. And this is something that is made possible because of the digital technologies we have today. So for example, when you're driving in a car, you have a little bit of downtime, you can listen to podcasts that can teach you about new things. This is something that I do regularly. Also, if I go out walking or things like that, I'm constantly listening to podcasts, and I can learn a lot in those little microbursts of time. Same thing if you're out exercising, jogging, any type of thing, you can listen. If you're walking to class, this guy might just get hit by a car pretty soon. But I chose this picture because there's so much on our phone. And sometimes we're just sitting in a doctor's office or other times, and we just start scanning through our phone, kind of like when we go through social media on our phone. And if we incorporate learning resources into that habit we have of scanning through our phone and scanning through social networks, we can use that time for not only connecting with others, but also connecting with new learning needed to help our students. And then this is just someone, I assume maybe she was taking a break while her potatoes were cooking or something and decided to look online at something. I don't know. But the idea is that you set up a situation where you have constant access to different types of new ideas coming in. And that allows you to continue learning even when you're busy. So in the chapter you read, it talked about two types. It talked about personal learning environments and personal learning networks. And really, I think these merge. They're pretty similar. A personal learning environment is talking about just the types of resources you access, whereas personal learning network is focused more specifically on people you associate with. But really, they blend together. And I just want to break this down into categories, or what types of things can you do for these micro bursts of learning. So I broke it into read, listen and watch, follow, and do. So reading, you can do books and articles and magazines, but you can also be reading websites or blogs. Blogs are fun because sometimes they're just short posts. They only take a couple minutes to read, but they're constantly updated. So if you find some really good blogs to follow, that can help you stay updated on new techniques and new ideas and new research. Listen and watch has to do with the podcasts. Also videos on YouTube or Vimeo or other places as well. You can watch short clips of videos and learn a lot. Follow. Not everyone is a huge fan of social media. I use Facebook primarily for family and friends, but my Twitter I use more in a professional capacity of following different people, and that's how I divide it up. But really, if you can maximize your time so that you're following professionals in the field and seeing what they're doing and what they're talking about, that will give you those little microbursts of learning you need to understand the new things going on in the world. And then finally, do, and these can take a little bit more time. One of the parts of the Iste Standard was to actually share with others and be active. And that requires actually doing things. So one is participating in online courses, which are Moocs. I'll show you in a moment. But the other is actually keeping your own blog and actually collaborating with others, actually tweeting out your own ideas in your classroom as you develop them, staying linked in with others. And what that looks like for people can be different. We have different preferences about how connected we want to be digitally, and that's okay. The idea is to figure out a way that can support your own learning using some of these tools. So this Moocs, this online course, Mooc stands for a massive open online course. And these are going a little bit out of trend, but the result is there's a whole lot of free open courses you can take online. And I have learned a lot of stuff on free open courses. So there's a whole bunch of different communities and such, businesses that provide free courses. Sometimes if you want like an official certificate, you pay something, but most of them are free. This mooc.list.com, let me pull that up and show you what this looks like. This is a good way to find different Moocs happening. This is what it looks like. And I can actually look over here in topics and I can look at teacher professional development, and it'll pull up, a whole bunch of different courses that are coming up. And sometimes you take the course at the same time as others, and sometimes you can just go back and do one that's already over. But that's a good way if you have a specific skill you want to learn. A good way to do it is to find an open online course to help you with that. So that's Moocs. All right. So let's say you figure out a good way to come up with all your ideas and to continually learn your stuff. The next challenge comes with finding the things that you need. It's with organizing your digital workspace, right? And this is another personal preference thing. You can choose a lot of different ways to do this. But it might include something like digital notebooks or note-taking apps, different digital collections or collections of bookmarks, email, cloud storage. The key is that you want everything to be searchable so that as you're acquiring a lot of new information, or if you see an idea you like, you're able to go back and find it. And that takes some thinking ahead of how you're going to organize the information. So for example, what I use is I actually use OneNote, which comes from Microsoft Office, which I get free through ULM. So that's why I use it. I used to use Evernote, but that costs more money. So I stick with OneNote. And I can even briefly show you my OneNote right here. For example, this is teaching resources. When I see things, I can keep track of them that I want to go through. I have a whole bunch of stuff of these are all about different things I've read. And the cool thing is I can search, and if I wanted to search design-based research or something, it's not working right now, but normally it would search those things for me. And I could find all my notes that have that information. I even have a whole notebook on that. So by making things searchable, I'm able to find quickly whatever I need. The other part of this is keeping your primary documents on a cloud drive. That's good practice anyway. So a cloud drive is when instead of being stored on your personal device, it's stored on a server owned by another company. Through ULM, you have OneDrive for free, which is great. Google Drive is also very nice, but ULM doesn't provide it. But again, it's the same thing where if I have things on a cloud drive, it's really easy for me to search and find the documents I need, and I don't have to worry about losing them because my computer died. Another method that I use some of the time, depending on the projects I'm working on, is I use this tool called Rocketbook. And what this does is it allows me to actually physically write in the notebook, and then I take my phone and I take a picture in the app, the Rocketbook app, and it actually sends it to my cloud drive or my OneNote folder, and it adds text recognition so I can still search it. So that makes it so that sometimes it's easier and really better for your memory to write things down in person. This makes it so you can digitize what you write. And then these last two are just things that are more specific to the type of work I do. Sorry, my mouse is being weird. One is Paperpile. That's a way that I collect all the different academic journal articles and magazine articles. Unless you're an academic, you probably don't need that, but it's something that's handy if you want to do that. And Slack is a collaboration space that I use with others that I work with. So this is just an example of how I organize my digital workspace and knowledge space so I can find the things that I need so that I can collaborate with others and I don't lose my documents. So it's just important to think through that, how you're going to be organizing your knowledge space. All right, very last learner. 1A is to set professional goals. You're actually going to be given an assignment that is going to help you start setting those professional goals. So I just want to do a quick review that is why we're going to do this assignment, is because of this 1A Iste Standard. All right, marathon video. Let's do the takeaways. Iste Standards, they give us something to focus on. They give us a kind of a measuring stick with how we are and where we want to be. And then an educator learner, you find ways to maximize micro bursts of learning, such through podcasts or social networking or whatever you use. You develop a personal learning environment or network, and you set professional learning goals. Thanks for watching.